All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another edition of the Franchise Your Business podcast series. My name is Tom DuFore. I'm the CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team, and so grateful to have you on the episode today because we are talking about probably your favorite thing all year, which is FDD renewals. Okay, let's be real. Probably not your favorite thing. In fact, your CPA has probably already hit you up for filing your taxes, and you may have forgotten about the FDD renewal or all the parts that are involved with it. So this webinar and session is specifically designed to get that nice little poke early in the season, early in the year, to remind you that you've got to get this done, and to help us and bring us up to speed as to what this is, why we do it, and all the things that are involved with your FDD renewals. We've asked Adam Walsh to join us, and Adam is the founding partner of the Franchise Firm, a boutique firm serving clients nationwide. Adam and his team have launched and represent hundreds of startup and emerging franchise brands as franchise counsel over the years. Adam was most recently a partner and franchise law chair of an AmFam Law 200 law firm before forming and launching the Franchise Firm with his partners. So with that, as you're all loading in here, Adam, I'd love for you to take it away here.
Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate it. Always enjoy speaking to you. Certainly happy to answer any of your questions about FDD updates. And I guess to start, if you haven't thought about it already, you might be a little bit behind the eight ball, because now's the time to really get your ducks in a row, make sure you're speaking to your auditor, speaking to your counsel, and getting things ready to go for the most recent update.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the just the updates in general for the renewals that are needed. So certainly there's the federal requirement for the update. So for maybe a new franchisor, or maybe someone who's new in a position that they're in the franchise department, they're kind of tasked with helping gather this information. Talk through why do we even have to get this updated once a year? What's the importance of that?
So yeah, the FTC franchise rule requires us to advise our clients that they need to update their FDD within 120 days after the fiscal year end. And for most startup and emerging brands, that date would land on December 31st. So we're talking about a time period between January 1 and April 30th. That is the really timeline that the franchise brands should be working on their update. Obviously, if we don't have our update and our audit before the federal deadline, then afterwards we have to stop selling. Some states certainly have elevated deadlines. Virginia being one of the ones that comes to the top of my mind. California as well. But the deadline could be earlier, so you really should check with your counsel to make sure that you're fully aware of the update deadlines around this time period.
So when the update comes through, what kind of information is for the franchisor? What kind of information do they need to start thinking about getting prepared for this update?
Yeah, so if you're one of our clients at the franchise firm, we would start with a update letter and a questionnaire. I've got it in front of me, but basically we're asking for any changes in the system, updates to obviously the item 19 financial performance information, information about the franchisees that have entered or left the system, to update item 20 and the charts that are associated with that. What the franchisor has learned over the years that has maybe guided them to change certain provisions in their franchise agreement, or perhaps the estimated initial investment has changed and they need to update item 7. Certainly those considerations should be addressed during the update. Frankly, as in addition to this update season, some of those things might be material and require you to actually update your FDD throughout the year.
So, have you noticed or seen over the last several years, inflation's been a hot topic. Certainly, it's been on the minds of most. How have you seen that inflation impact the initial investment range that you'd see in an item seven?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is, year over year, and I think it really started probably in 2020, where, supply chains were sort of crunched and people were, rents were starting to kind of dip, but then they started to fly. And so brands have adjusted by increasing the estimated initial investment for the most part, and I'm speaking very generally. And so, if we were to see a red line of FDDs from 2020 to now, odds are good, that there was either a slight or a drastic increase based on franchisee input coming in from various parts of the country where inflation could impact even more so, such as metro areas or other areas where uh, rents are higher and supplies are even more difficult to source and contractors are hard to find. And so, especially for brick and mortar, those numbers have probably jumped over the years.
And as you work with your clients through this process, you mentioned a questionnaire and fact finding that you take your clients through and going through this. I'm always curious at this time of year how your clients start preparing or how you maybe recommend your clients to start preparing for example, for item 19. That's always a big topic of discussion. It's for many, if this is their fiscal year end, they're probably just kind of getting their books wrapped up or maybe not even wrapped up for all of 2023. And certainly if you have franchisees, you're relying on your franchisees to also make sure that their that numbers are updated and current. So how do you work through that item 19 discussion with your clients?
Right. It's dependent on the size of the system. Obviously, if there's a robust system with a lot of franchisees, it does take some time for the brand to accumulate that data. We're starting to recommend certain softwares that will help franchisors keep that data in real time. One of our friends of the firm, it's a brand called Crockett. They have real time uh, software that franchisors can start to use, and it's best to use it early on, frankly, to keep a real track of not only top line revenues but also expenses that are being incurred not only initially but ongoing. For those that are doing it more traditionally, may not have a software like that. Generally, it does take time. Hopefully, our clients are collecting those P&Ls, within the time frames that are required in the franchise agreement. Some do, some don't. And so, we'll eventually get that data from the client and uh, implement it and discuss how we're going to portray and present the item 19 and, go through that process. But it does take time. So, now is really the time to start with, gathering those financials, making sure that you identify what you have and what you don't have, and get that data from your franchisees as quickly as possible.
So at this time, and I'm just thinking of the item 19, and it. How often do you see, or will you maybe even recommend to a client that they consider maybe changing what they're sharing, if it's just gross top line only for gross sales, or how does that discussion generally go?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of more data, the better, right? Obviously, um, the from a franchisee perspective, they're going to have questions. They're going to want to know, where that net number is, or what the expenses have looked like throughout the system. So yeah, I mean, initially, obviously, if we're talking about a few corporate locations for a startup, and we're just rolling that out. I'd even recommend a top and bottom line for that as well. But yeah, the item 19s, for our clients are usually based on just the system itself and customized to the data points that the franchisor wants to use to not only sell, their brand, but also provide to, franchisees that are interested in joining the system. It's either included in the item 19, or you're kind of opening yourself up to a problem, right? By giving that data out outside of the FDD, which is of course something that would be a violation of the rules, and then we would never advise on such a thing. That said, there are, if top line is the only way that, the only data point you want to go, that's, better than nothing. So, we're a big proponent of more data, the better, but certainly some data is better than none.
That's helpful. And one thing that I know I've spoken with clients with over the years is where it comes up at this time of year where they start questioning things like their fee structure, or maybe even product or service sales that they didn't offer earlier, but maybe now the system's grown enough where there might be opportunities for these types of new fees, new services to offer to franchisees. How does incorporating something like that flow? How do you typically work or advise clients going through a situation like that?
I mean, as the system grows, there's going to be more vendors, more suppliers, more tech that they may want to implement. Usually, when we're drafting an FDD, initially we're going to leave the window open for a client to grow, right, and add certain components of their system that will benefit franchisees in the long run. So, those things will adjust. We just need to, our role in this process is to make sure that we're accounting for all the changes that have occurred over the course of a year, and we'll implement those into the appropriate items.
Great. So, as another item I always think of at this time of year that I've seen clients sometimes struggle with is updating item 20. And especially if they've gone through, maybe they've sold, 15, 20, 30 franchises in a year, or maybe they've had some franchisees fall off and several new ones add on. It adds up. When you start aggregating it over the course of the year, it's a lot. And so, how have you seen clients be? Successful is not the right word, but maybe more diligent or proactive in trying to gather this information? Are there any best practices you might advise on that?
Yeah, I mean, we like to get involved in our client sales process. For certain of our clients, we're actively, assisting with the closing process and making sure that, we keep records and have data as the year goes. It's so much easier for us as lawyers to have information throughout the year than to get it dumped on us in the, through January, April. Either way is fine, right? But certainly states where we have, the examiners, the registration states, they are closely scrutinizing our item 20s and making sure that the numbers match up. Even the charts that we have all of the franchisees' information, their contact information, which is a requirement in an FDD. They want to match that up to the numbers in item 20. And it does take some time, especially where a brand uses maybe a franchise sales organization or a network of brokers and has grown significantly throughout the year. It's almost like they're gathering their own information and then providing it to us to decipher. And we usually have meetings, weekly meetings with our clients that are growing pretty fast to make sure that we have every franchise agreement from the year that and make sure that the item 20 and the charts are completed, because we know that the states, when we submit those FDDs with red lines to the registration states, that they're going to be looking at that pretty closely.
So for someone that, we have several folks on the line here that are, I'm sure, thinking about, okay, it's time to update. As someone's starting to launch into this update, speaking of best practices, what is a great client of yours, as someone that does a great job or does it well? What does that look like? What helps make your process as the attorney to go faster or easier so that you can get them through and ready to go more quickly.
Right. A lot of our clients will devote one officer, director, item two person as like the FDD person. Not a technical term for sure, but someone that is going to be the hunter and gatherer on the franchisor side, and the person that's going to fill out our questionnaire and speak to us on behalf of the team. We don't need everyone, on the line when we do our update calls, but certainly for our bigger systems, having someone there that is able to get us information, get us the answers, get us the documents that we need to finish the update is certainly helpful. And that person would also be in, the main contact probably for the auditor, with the CFO of the brand. For our smaller systems, we get it. We represent a lot of startup brands that, the founder is the CEO, is the CFO, is the COO, is everything, right? And, that is a challenge, but that's why we start the process so early. We're going to start in December, January, making sure our clients are, cognizant of what is needed, understand that we can't just get everything dumped on us on April 29th, the day before the update. And it's an education process. And starting early for us has been a winning proposition. And certainly having my founding partner, Natalie Restivo, who I consider to be our FDD and update expert at the firm, having her by my side, making sure that she's, we're both on it and pushing our clients to get us information for the next. And we'll be doing that for the next couple of months.
Absolutely. So, and before we started, we were talking a little bit about some clients that sometimes gather all of that information. They do a great job packaging it up, and then they email it to you on April 29th. So for the clients that are in that mindset of maybe waiting until the last minute, what advice might you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, speaking for the franchise attorney bar, right? I think we've all been there. And, it's tough to tell a client that, thank you for this information, but, we've advised you that the state deadlines have now been missed, right? And the FTC rule, is we can't whip up this update in 20 minutes and get you your FDD by, the deadline there. So it becomes sort of a effort in A, client management, but B, making sure that we get the job done quickly. We would then have to, if there's any states involved that are, have been registered, it would require us to basically start new. So there's really a good, history here of clients that have done, of not clients, but brands that have done that with their counsel, I'm sure. But it just know that that's why we are asking for the information, in January, February, and March, because of the time that it's going to take, and the ramifications of missing the deadline are not only costly from a cost perspective, but also you have to stop selling franchises after the deadline and go into what we call a dark period or a gray period.
So, well, and I think for folks tuning in, sometimes it's as you mentioned, for smaller brands, it's probably the owner that's involved with some of that, or maybe the franchise director or franchise sales leader at the organization sometimes is involved. And just as a reminder, right, it's if you don't get it in on time or early enough, you get delayed, and now you're on pause from selling additional franchises, or adding new franchisees into the system. So, well, I think this has been great here. I know we've got several folks on the line. I'd love to just open it up for some questions. So that you might have for Adam while we have him here. So let's open this up for some general questions. Go ahead and raise your hand or type it into the chat box. I can unmute you if you'd like to talk, or just type it in and we can make sure we can ask the question for you. Well, while they're thinking about that here, Adam, just let's talk a little bit to one other quick point about it for timing. I always compare the FDD renewals to tax filings with the CPA, and you mentioned that if it comes back, if someone gets the information back to you uh, on April 29th, it's just not going to happen for a turnaround time. So, what is a nice window where someone can get that information back to you, and in a reasonable time period where you have that nice kind of back and forth to finalize information, collect whatever else might have been missed, or for so you can finish it up.
Yeah, I mean, we generally try to give our clients like a March 31st deadline. That gives us enough time to usually get what we need to get done. Obviously, some late nights, but at the end of the day, we'll get the job done for our clients when they need it. So that's the kind of the drop dead deadline that we set. Obviously, are we still working in April? Unfortunately, sometimes May, June to get our clients updates done. Yeah, it just happens. Things happen. But now's the time really to get with your auditor for sure because they're going to start getting busy with a lot of different franchise clients. Now's the time to start gathering your documents, and certainly if your attorney has not yet reached out, maybe ping them and see what's going on because we're actively working on updates right now. As information comes in, we'd love to get some of them out the door and done early so we can hit usually the larger brands that have more franchisees, more data to collect, maybe a more robust, tax or financial situation. Those are going to take a little longer, so we're going to expect those probably in March and early April.
Great. We had a question come in, and the question here, Adam, is this a manual process or an online or electronic process that you go through?
We communicate with our clients through many different media, but generally this is it's a, I'll call it a manual process, but certainly we, accept all of our documents electronically. We are actively requesting information from our clients through a questionnaire. Not a bad point. We've actually considered putting it onto our website as a link. So I appreciate the idea of that, and certainly that would be, I think, somewhat novel in our industry. And I'm always thinking about ways to kind of push the envelope. But I think generally, and for most attorneys that are doing these updates, it's a manual process, attorney-client discussion. Some we need to have, weekly meetings to make sure that we're on task and make sure we're getting information. And others, it's just as simple as responding to our questionnaire electronically. We pop in the information, we get the audit, we submit FDD back to them, updated for the new year, and they're off and running. Certainly with registration states, we then do our thing to make sure that the clients get those renewals or any initial registrations that are requested.
Excellent. Great question there. Other questions from our attendees here. We have one that came up. It says, my FAC seems to have thoughts to FDD amendments. In your experience, how do ZORs handle this? So for the FDD amendments,
I mean, the amendments to the FDD are going to be based on feedback that you get from franchisee prospects. Maybe you've had a few prospects that have, tried to negotiate certain terms, and that maybe happens consistently. We might suggest to our clients that we, instead of doing addendums to each deal, we just change the terms of the agreement. Obviously, the disclosures in the FDD are sort of ever evolving, right? You know, there's new people that are being added to the team in item 2. There may be a litigation, hopefully not, in item 3. You know, we talked about item 7 with the updated initial costs that, you know, with feedback from franchisees over the course of a year might need to be adjusted. So, you know, there are plenty of FDD items that will consistently need to be updated, and we just approach that on a case-by-case basis.
Hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Great questions. Great questions from the attendees. So, Adam is, for someone who's tuning in who says, Adam, this is great. I mean, how can someone get in touch with you if they say, we'd love to talk with you about this?
Yeah, so we're very proud to have launched the franchise firm. My partners and I represent a lot of brands. We do a lot of startup work. Really excited for our launch and what's to come this year. We really appreciate our relationship with Big Sky, and thank you for this opportunity to join everyone. Yeah, my email is adam@thefranchisefirm.com. You can reach me by phone at 561-680-5918. That's my direct line. And you'll find me on Twitter. I do enjoy the Twitter, X, as the kids call it. And you can find me at AdamGWashESQ on X. So give me a follow if you are viewing this, and look forward to interacting there as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'd love to see if there are any other questions from our attendees. And while we're waiting to see if that happens, just a closing comment for our attendees that we will have this session posted live up on our podcast, Franchise Your Business. We will also post this on our YouTube channel at Big Sky Franchise Team. Just search for us on YouTube. And then we'd love for you to subscribe to our weekly podcast called Multiply Your Success. And today is Groundhog Day. And as I heard, it looks like we are in for hopefully an early spring, or that winter is not elongated, apparently, is what I've heard. So hopefully, maybe that means your clients will be getting their FDD renewal documents and information over to you early as well, so that they can be ready to go and start selling and continue selling, I should say, in 2024.
As a fan of the movie, Tom, I hope I don't wake up tomorrow and see this on my calendar again at 1:00. we know there's going to be a problem if I see that, but yeah, yes. always a fun day, and I think maybe gathering my kids around the couch to watch Groundhog Day. I think they're old enough now, so fun day and a fun movie.
Yeah, agree. Well, it's definitely one of my favorites, and it's the one time of year where I get to talk about my hometown, because most of the movie was filmed in my hometown, and so that square was the little square in Woodstock, Illinois, in the far stretching suburbs of the Chicago area. So it's always a little funny little tidbit of info, right?
Are you giving insider information that was not Punxsutawney?
That I don't know. I just know it was a big deal when it was filmed in town, small town, and on the little square there. So, yeah. Perfect. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. Adam, thank you so much for your time. This has been a great interview. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you back next week.
Thanks, Tom.